These are the 10 movies in the Fast and Furious franchise. The Fast and the Furious. Too Fast, Too Furious. The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. Fast and Furious. Fast 5. Fast and Furious 6. Furious 7. The Fate of the Furious. F9. And the latest iteration, Fast X. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm leaving the theater. All right, this is Ronald, and I am leaving the theater after seeing Fast X, a.k.a. Fast 10, the 10th Fast and the Furious movie, because you know what they say, if you can't get it right the first 9 times, go for a 10th. Oh man, the review is starting early on this one. Fast X, written by Justin Lin, Zach Dean, and Dan Mazeau, directed by Louis Leterrier. Starring Vin Diesel, Michelle Rodriguez, Tyrese Gibson, Chris Ludacris Bridges, Jason Momoa, Nathalie Emmanuel, Kang, Jordana Brewster, Jason Statham, Jason Momoa, and Charlize Theron. The cast is much bigger than that, and if you want a complete cast listing, you can go to the link in my show notes. Let me just first start off by saying there are too many people to care about in this movie. Brie Larson is in this movie. And I know you can click on the link in the show notes to find that out, but she's in this movie. And I'm saying that to say, when you hire Brie Larson, you have to give her camera time. And if you have to give her camera time, that means she has to have some sort of thing to do in the movie. Which means if she's in the movie and everyone else I just listed at the top of the movies in the movie, that means your movie's going to have a lot of work to do. It's going to do a lot of jumping around. It's going to have to be in a lot of different places, doing a lot of different things. And let me just tell you, this movie had a lot to do. This movie is 2 hours and 21 minutes long, and I got to be honest with you, they did not do much. They did not accomplish much in this movie in terms of the plot going from beginning to end. We now know that Fast X is the first part of a trilogy that will conclude the Fast and the Furious saga. Now, I say that with a grain of salt because we know that nothing ever really ends anymore. If there is some IP that exists, it will keep coming back over and over and over again. Just like the people in this movie that don't seem to ever stay dead. When I say that, I mean, I really liked the Fast and the Furious movies. I really did. There was a long time ago. It was probably around 4, 5, and 6. So that would be Fast and Furious, then Fast 5, and then it was probably Fast and Furious 6. I liked all 3 of those movies. I thought they were great. On 7, I thought there was a little bit of a dip off, but I thought it was okay because I'm like, okay, Paul Walker's dead. They're probably going to end these movies. And boom, they come out with the Fate of the Furious. And then they come out with Fast 9. And now they come out with Fast 10. So they've kept going. And I think that's been their biggest problem because they've completely run out of ideas. So instead, they just shove it full of stars and they just keep going further and further. And I don't think that they have the magic to keep doing this. And I'm wondering, it's crazy because we know that this one is a trilogy. We know that this is the beginning of a trilogy, again, that ends the series. And I'm thinking about it now that I don't think that this movie is good enough. Like, I think this might be the one that audiences are like, wait, what? On this one. I don't know. You have to watch it because if you can't tell, I'm a little flustered. And I think if I back up, I think it's because I used to think that these were good movies. I used to think that they actually did a very good job making, just silly action movies. And they were a lot of fun. But then they got too silly. They got to the point where it was just like they just stopped making sense. They started crossing genres. It became some sort of like techno thriller rather than just like cars versus bad guys. The villains are too cartoonish now. I mean, the last two that they've had Charlize Theron, and now they've had Jason Momoa. And Jason Momoa is he's I think he's supposed to be funny in this movie, and people laughed, but I just thought he was. It wasn't like he was cracking jokes. Like the joke was that here's this large man we know as Jason Momoa, and he's not saying or doing large man things. But I don't even think he was doing that very well. When I say large man, I mean saying and doing large man things that you would see typical in an action movie. And I would love someone else's opinion on this, but there's this way in which he's kind of wearing femininity as a joke. And that's the punchline. The punchline is like, wouldn't it be crazy if Jason Momoa were a little bit more femme? You know what I mean? And I think that's, and if you watch it, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like, I'm not saying that it's not possible for a villain to be queer, but I am saying that it feels in this way, they're not treating it that way. If everything that he's doing and saying is being played for laughs, then it's really not, like, that's not giving a person a personality. You know what I mean? You're not really like, that's not really queer visibility in that moment. You know what I mean? You're really just like playing something for laughs, which it feels lazy and a bit like a cop-out. So I didn't really enjoy Jason Momoa for that reason. So, I mean, overall, if you've seen one Fast and Furious movie, you've seen probably the majority of them. And I'm saying that again as a person who will go down swinging on 4, 5, and 6. I'll go down swinging, telling y'all that those are great movies. You should see them, and then stop after 6. You know, you don't even need to see 7. I watched 7. I think the part that gets me in 7 is that, we know Paul Walker dies, and they do this really touching tribute to him with using that Wiz Khalifa song. Which I can't remember right now, but they do this touching tribute, and that really, like, I really got choked up watching that. And had that been the end of the Fast and Furious saga, I would have been perfectly fine with that. But they kept going. And I remember even when Vin Diesel talked about those movies, he says 7 was for Paul and 8 is from Paul. And I remember watching 8 and been like, Paul, I don't want it. Take it back. I don't want it. So it ends on a cliffhanger, and I think it's important to tell y'all that because I don't want y'all walking into this thinking you're going to walk out with a resolved movie like you have on every other Fast and Furious movie. It's just not the case in this one. They're setting up for 2 more movies. And in a lot of ways, that makes this feel kind of like a reboot, as if they're just, coming back from the beginning and giving you 3 more movies, and that's kind of what they did with Fast and Furious 4. It was a reboot. They restarted it over again, and we got in there, and now we're up to 10. And so in almost sometimes it feels kind of disingenuous to say that this is the 10th movie, because if we're being honest, it's really, if you start with 4, if you say 4 is 1, you just pretend 1, 2, and 3 didn't happen, because you don't necessarily need them for the rest of the story. So you really just need to know that they have some sort of history between them, and that's all that really matters. And after that, that's like basically all you need to know. So if you start at 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's really only it's really only the 7th movie. So you know what I mean? Like it's cool, right? Okay, there's a guy yelling in the courtyard where I'm at. It's a little distracting. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to watch the next 2. There were some cool things that happened, but these movies don't have any stakes anymore. People dying doesn't matter. Like, there's no emotional resonance at all. I think this is essentially a 2-star movie, but there were some stunts and some parts that I liked that would have brought it up to 3-star. So I think this is a 2.5 of 5-star movie. I'm going to be talking about this on, if you really want a more in-depth review of this, I'm talking about this movie also on Pop Culture Happy Hour this week. That episode should be available to you already. If you just jump into Pop Culture Happy Hour feed from NPR, you will see the Fast X review. I'll be on there talking about that with Aisha Harris. So look for that. And with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of OhitsBigRon Studios. Thomas Tyver of Bias Studios mixes the show. Thank you, Tom. Show art from Heather Wilder. Theme music by the mysterious Break Master Cylinder. For more information about Fast X, check out our show notes. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at OhitsBigRon. That's at OhitsBigRon. You can find out more about this show and other OhitsBigRon Studio shows by following us on Instagram at OhitsBigRon Studios and on Twitter at OhitsBigRon Stew. That's STEW. Leaving the Theater will be back soon. Thanks for listening. And it ends on a cliffhanger, which the reason why I say that to you is because I want y'all to be prepared, not feeling like this is going to be resolved towards the end. Somebody's yelling. I don't like when they be yelling outside. No, he's still yelling. Please stop yelling. Know that Brian and Dom met and they have a checkered past. That dude is still yelling. Just know that they have a checkered past.